Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Recitation 0 section about AWS, full name being Amazon Web Services. So today I'm going to walk you through what AWS is and how to set up a server on AWS so that you can do your homework and your project. All right, so what is AWS? It is a cloud service, which basically means a leasing of computers. So let's say you have your laptop at CMU, but then you want to do training in homeworks and projects, that's deep learning training that can't basically happen on a consumer level laptop. So you want to have a powerful computer with GPUs preferably. And if you want to buy one, that's actually pretty expensive. So what happens is you can set up these servers on AWS, which are essentially computers on Amazon's warehouse, which they lease to you via a certain protocol, so then you can access them and perform computational tasks on them without actually owning the laptop. All right, so you want to go to AWS, and you click on the first link here. And then, all right, so here's when you will click on sign in to the console. All right, and you're going to have to make an account. That's actually pretty easy. So once you're finished making an account, you'll see a screen like this, right? Your screen is going to be very similar to mine, but then there's, yeah, we're going to work from here. So the first thing you notice is that my region actually says US East Northern Virginia. Region is actually pretty important. All the work that we do, which includes setting up a server and requesting limit increase, both happen within the region that you're in, right? So if you select the wrong region, even if you have everything set up, it's going to be in vain, right? Because CMU is in Pittsburgh, we want something that's in the US East, right? So either of this is fine. They have practically no difference. So the first thing you will notice is that AWS actually have a lot of services. There are numerous of them, but the only one that we care about is EC2, which stands for Elastic Cloud Compute. All right, so we either click on this EC2 button over here, or we just type EC2 in the search bar and click on it. All right, so here you'll see the EC2 home screen. And what we want to do is we want to launch an instance. All right, so we can check out our running instances, which is an empty list. And then we can click on this orange button here that says launch instances. So we will launch an instance. All right, so the first thing that you want to think about is actually not the name, not the another thing, but what type of instance do you want to launch? All right, so you will notice that some instances actually say free tier eligible, which basically means that if you've used AWS for less than a certain period of time, that it is free for you to set up this kind of server. But then for homework purposes, we actually want to set up a server that is powerful enough to support deep learning training. And that basically means it has to have a GPU, right? So which of these, this is a long list, right? This is all the instances that there is. So what instances do we want? So for this, you can just Google AWS EC2 all instance types, right? And you want to click on the first link here that says compute EC2 instance types. So in here, you will find an explanation on all the instance types that there is. And we care about this type called the accelerated computing. So click on here. And these are essentially the instances that is going to, let's say, help you the most in terms of speeding up compute. So let's say we want a P3 instance. We're gonna learn that it has a lot of this kind of GPU, and then this kind of this many GPU RAM, etc. Right. So the two things that we care about in instance type is, first of all, does it support the kind of compute that I want? And essentially anything in this level will support the level of difficulty or the computing requirements in this course. But the other dimension of consideration is, what is the price of that, right? So for that, you can Google AWS plus EC2 instance comparison. All right, Google that and click on this vantage.sh link over here. And this is a useful web page. It is slightly outdated, meaning that the numbers might not be 100% accurate, but then you can see at least what kind of instances are cheaper or / more expensive than the others, or a ballpark range of what you might expect. And also you will have the exact price forecast in AWS itself. It's just before setting up these things, before actually clicking the button, you can investigate these instance types using these two websites. So let's say I want to, let's say I want a P3, right? So let's say I want a P3.2x large, because since that's like the smallest P3 that there is. So let's type that in the API name search bar over here. Let's say P3.2x large. So here it is. We see that it has this many vCPUs, which is an AWS term that we're going to be dealing with later on. And then it has this many memory, and it charges this much price on demand. All right, so $3 per hour. That's actually a lot, considering if you run it for a whole day, that's going to be nearly $100, right? So here are the two websites that I think you should make use of when you are trying to decide what type of instance that you want to run your assignment on, right? Price is an important consideration. You don't want to go bankrupt just because you took a course in here, right? And most probably you'll have the coupons in place when you need to start the assignments. Okay, so let's say we want to launch a P3.2x large in here. And let's say I want to name my server, let's say ideal test, right? And so now we get to decide what type of machine images that we want to launch the machine on. So the one AMI that we recommend is called deep learning. And here, so each of these AMIs have specifically supported a subset of all the instance types that there is. So you need to look at here, it looks like it supports P3, although it comes with a star. I don't know what the star means. But then here, this one also supports P3. So I'm just going to select this. All right. So now we selected P3.2x large, but okay. So we're also going to create a key pair on here. So we're going to say generate a new key pair, and then for the key pair name, I'm just going to say my key. All right, and either of these options is fine. It doesn't even matter. And I'm going to create a key pair. So my key has been downloaded to my download folder. You can place it anywhere on your system, but then we're going to use this later on to log into our system. All right. So for the network settings, we can create a new security group, which is basically going to say allow SSH traffic from anywhere. And the reason for that is you want to be able to connect to your instance via SSH. If you don't click on this, then there's no way for you to connect to it, and that's terrible. That makes your machine useless. All right, so you definitely need to click on this. And these two buttons, checkboxes, you don't need to concern that much. If for advanced use cases, like for example, you're setting up a server for some kind of model and you want to perform inference on it, then you need to allow HTTP/HTTPS traffic. But just for the purpose of performing compute or performing training itself, you don't need to allow anything other than the SSH traffic. All right, and ideally we want some kind of storage. So I'll just say 100 gigs, which is more than enough for our demonstration purposes. So you are nearly ready to launch this instance, but then there's a catch. Okay, so Amazon has what they call EC2 compute limits, and that's basically because they don't want everyone to run the most powerful hardware. And that's probably because A, they have a limited supply of hardware, and B, you might just get bankrupt if you don't operate on these things carefully, and they want to put a bar into who can operate the most powerful hardware. So in terms of the P3.2x large, you will find that, especially if you just made an account, that you are not permitted to run the instance. If I clicked on launch instance right now, I would have a progress bar that goes all the way to the end, but right before it hits the end, it's going to say you have hit your limit in what kind of EC2 instances you can run. All right. So what happens now is you will go to your limit screen to see what kind of limits you have, and then we can decide on what kind of machine instances we want to run, and also how do we request an increase in that kind of limits. All right. So to do that, we open another AWS window, and we want to in the search bar we want to type service quotas. All right. So here we go to service quotas, and there are a bunch of services. As I said, above 99% of these services we don't care about. Okay, we're gonna click on the AWS services on the left here, and to find services we just type EC2. And so okay, so we see that there's EC2 over here, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, bracket EC2. We'll click on that, and so here are the limits of what kind of the instances that you're allowed to run, and to what capacity. All right. So we want to run, let's say, P3.2x large. So that's a P instance. So we have this P instance, spot instance requests. And if we just type P instance, we have two types of P instances. One of them is called P spot instance request, and the other is called on-demand P instances. So the difference between the spot instance and the on-demand instance I'm going to cover in a minute. But then let's first of all let's talk about the service quota increase here. So you can see that the applied quota value, which is my in effect value of both of these, is 0. And you can also see that in here, this machine has 8 vCPUs. That basically means I'm not allowed to run this, because in order to run something that's 8, I need to have a limit that's also larger than or above 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to request an increase in here. I'm going to say request quota increase. And then I want to increase it to 8. And you can see that the increase screen actually tells you what you're requesting an increase for, like what region you're requesting this for. So if you are on the wrong region, or if you request an increase in one region and you want to run an instance in another region, it doesn't even apply. Okay, so make sure that you stick to the same region. So I'm going to click on request. And then this is requested. And then so you will be able to request increases, and sometimes you can even write on, explanations on, why you want to request this kind of limit increase. So what happens is when I just clicked on the spot instance service quota increase button, what happens is I just created a case of customer support, and someone is going to get back to me saying you can have this increase, or you cannot have this increase. And that'll create a dialogue in AWS support. So you can go there, and when it gets back to you, you're also going to be notified via email. And then what happens is you can, if they deny you this increase, you can make a stronger case saying, I'm a student in Carnegie Mellon University taking this deep learning course, and we need to do X, Y, and Z. And for that, I need to have some compute. So I'm using this for this purpose. And you can list our course number. You can list out the people involved in running the course, and that will make a stronger case if that happens to you, that the limit increase request doesn't go through. Okay, but then that's going to be a long-term, not long-term, but it's not going to go over in an instance, right? At least a couple of days you should expect for it to take. So for now, we will actually not run the P3.2x large instance. So for demonstration purposes, I'm actually going to run a smaller instance that's in free tier. But keep in mind that once you have your service limit increased, that was all you need to do in order to launch an instance, and you will just click on this button right over here to launch the instance. And all of the things that happen afterwards is the same regardless of instance type. So this is just for demonstration purposes. All right. So and the last thing about the running an instance is whether you want to request a spot instance or not a spot instance. So if you go back to the price chart that I introduced you to, you will notice that the on-demand category has a price, and this is another price called Linux spot minimum cost, and the spot cost is a lot cheaper than the on-demand cost. And how it works is that AWS has a lot of spare cycles, right? Basically, if this machine is there and no one wants to use it, then it's spare, right? So spot instance lets you take on those spare cycles. So basically, if no one's using it, you can take over it at a lower price, right? But the catch is that if someone actually requests a on-demand instance of that same instance type, and if they happen to run out of machines, then you have to give your machine back, right? And it makes sense because you are paying less for it, so you have lower priority in the assignment of machines. So, but then you can Google all over. There are a lot of articles about how you could make use of this mechanism. And for not so advanced machine types, this actually service interruption actually happens pretty rarely. So for our purposes, especially if you're on a budget, then you can actually consider you running the spot instances. So to do that, you would click on this checkbox over here. And that's basically all you need to do in order to run a spot instance of this type. All right, so for demonstration purposes, I'm actually going to switch off to another type of instance, which is going to be T2.micro. And since this AMI doesn't support T instances, I presume, I'm actually just going to use this this generic machine instance over here. All right. So I have selected a AMI, although this is just for demonstration purposes. For your purposes, you can use the deep learning AMI that I introduced to you earlier. I have selected an instance type, and I'm running this just because I don't have the limit. But then if you have it, you should run a more powerful instance type that you can choose from, judging from the websites that I provided you with. And I've created a key pair. The key is downloaded in my machine. And then I have a security group, which allows SSH traffic, so I can SSH into it. And then I have, you should configure the storage, which should probably just be bigger than this, but then yeah, you figure out for yourself how many storage you need, and then I'm requesting the spot instance. All right, so I'm just gonna run the on-demand instance here just because it's more stable. All right, let's launch the instance. All right, so the machine has successfully launched. So I can click on this link right over here, or I can click on the instances link to see that the machine is starting up. All right, so I'm just gonna wait until the instance state moves away from pending and says running. So then I can actually SSH into that machine. All right, still pending. So then let's look over what the address of the machine is. So, now it's running. Let's see, right? The state is running. So how do we connect to this machine? You will notice that conveniently, once you're on the screen, you can click on the instance ID, which is a button. And then on the top right, there's a button conveniently just called connect. So you can click on that. And then you want to say, click to the machine via SSH client. All right. So the other three options, the EC2 instance connect is just going to take you to the machine on the website, which is going to be more laggy than if you use their own terminal to connect to it. But then this is more carefree in that you can just click a button and it'll take you there. But then for our purposes, I'm going to demonstrate to you what's actually useful, which is to connect to the instance using SSH. All right. So here is the command that you need to use in order to connect to this, right? So the machine address is actually right over here. So it doesn't even need to be changed. You can see that the address of the username is ec2-user. It might change in some machines, but then yeah, if the default username is this, you can try this first. And then the address, they say it's ec2 5290 132 116. All right, so we can make sure that that's actually the IPv4 address of this machine. So then we can click on networking, and then here you can see that this is actually the address that machine is associated with, so that we know that the the command that we just saw there is actually what we would actually use in order to connect to the machine. Sorry, so let's copy this, and then let's go to our terminal, and then let's paste this command. So what we notice is that it references this mykey.pem, and the reason is that this is the key. This is the name of the security key that is associated in creating our machine. So, but then where is it, right? So I know that it's in my download folder, but you can place it anywhere you want, as long as when you connect, you specify the path of that key file in connecting to the machine. All right, so I'm going to say downloads. All right, I'm going to say yes. So here, what happens is that the key is not encrypted. So, which basically means anyone can read and write it, and that's going to create a security risk. And Amazon is concerned with that. So what you want to do is go to that. Now you have this mykey.pem, right? You want to change the permissions on this file so that only you will be able to read it. So on this topic, you should check out, there are a bunch of YouTube videos, there are a bunch of internet articles about the access to privilege system on Linux or on any Unix-like system. But then for our purposes, I'm just going to tell you that all you need to run is chmod, commod, which means change, I think change modality or something. And then you're going to write 700, which means that you will have privilege of 7. Anyone else in the same user group is going to have the privilege of 0, and absolutely anyone else is going to have the privilege of 0. So what each of these numbers mean, you can look up further, but then this is going to give only you any access to it. So I'm going to say PM. All right. So now you can see that I've encrypted it, and you can verify by running ls-l mykey.pem. So you can note that the first 3 letters are WX, means that you are permitted to read, write, and execute that file. And all the other dashes mean that no one else is able to do anything with it. All right, so let's run that command again. Great. We are on this machine on the AWS. You can see that you can know that because the terminal prompt has changed, and also I am on this machine over here. So we can ls, there's nothing. We can pwd, there's home/ec2 user, which is just my my username, my home directory, and then we can find out about how much space we have on this machine. So -h here. So we can see that the size of the disk is in fact 8 gigs, which is incredibly small for any purposes, but then this much of that is occupied by the operating system, so we really just have a subset of that. All right, so from this point on, you can continue to do anything that you find suitable. You can just work on your assignment. You can download code. You can run code in here, and so yeah, that's all it takes to set up a server on AWS. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the course, and please do not hesitate to approach me if there's any questions around this purpose.